Hi, this is Ken Wallace, and tonight we're going to explore a fascinating curiosity seen around Wyoming County and much of western New York in the early spring months. What I'm referring to is the production of maple syrup. On this show, we're going to see just one of the many methods to make maple syrup.
Hello, I'm Roger Eustace, and along with my brother Ralph, I would like to invite you to share a few minutes of your time with us in an armchair tour of our sugar bush at Apple Hill Farms. In the spring, when the weather begins to moderate, we head for the woods in preparation for the season's sap flow. To facilitate fast sap collection from our 3,000 taps, we use about 20 miles of plastic tubing, which must be sorted and returned to exactly the same location it was in the previous year. This spreads the tubing just enough so it'll fit over the nipple of that four-way T. There we go, Jim. Rolls are broken open and stretched between the trees with the help of a handmade spinner. Way out there. The proper placement is assured by following arrows painted on the trees in various coded colors. In our system, we stretch the lines tightly between the trees, suspended in the air. This helps in completing a grade so that the sap always flows to the lower parts of the woods. Pick it up, put it on. You can see a label on each line that shows us exactly what tee they must be placed upon. The small lateral lines that entwine throughout the woods are connected to half-inch lines, which in turn are fed into 1-inch trunk lines.
There, now, Reg, you want to get on this thing, and we'll have another push of war here. Good enough.
The natural grade in our woods is carefully utilized to enhance easy sap flow. Several of our main lines even follow creek beds, using nature's natural drainage paths. An overview of the woods makes it look like a giant spider web. This is a power tapper that we use to drill the holes in the tree. And this used to be done with a bracing bit, and it was a lot of hand work. But now we have a converted chainsaw here that has a drill bit that is a 7/16" drill. And Kevin will go along and smooth off a place with his hatchet and drill a hole in the tree that's about 2.5 to 3 inches long and deep. And then I'll come along after him and drive in the sap spigot and the drop. Go ahead. We start tapping trees when they become about 10 inches in diameter. A tree that size would have one tap hole. On trees that are possibly 18 inches in diameter, we would put 2 taps. Different length drops are carried so that we can help grade the lines to the right height. The drops are fastened to little T's in the lateral lines. And given the right kind of weather conditions, sap starts to flow. One drop at a time, drop after drop. It takes about 43 gallons of 2% sap to make 1 gallon of syrup.
Roger, there's many kinds of maple trees. We see them all over in people's yards, in the woods. How do you know which one is a sugar maple over any other maple?
Good question, Ken. There's several kinds of maple trees in this area. There's the sugar maple or the hard maple. There's a soft maple. And in a lot of people's yards, you'll find the red maples and some silver maples and so on. But the one that has the most sugar content in it, the one that we're interested in, is a sugar maple. And this is one of them. And this is a nice example of a nice sugar maple that we find in the woods.
Okay, now what determines a sugar maple from a red maple?
Okay, when we walk up to a tree, what we want to look for is a fairly dark bark tree. In comparison to the beeches and some of the other trees that we find in the woods, this is a fairly dark tree. It's got a fairly rough, kind of a scaly bark on it, but it's kind of coarse at the same time. Now, the soft maple is colored very much like this, but it has a smaller grain to the bark, and it's a little flakier. And later on in the spring, you'll see a big difference in the bud formation of it.
Okay, Roger, now something I was wondering, I see you've got a lot of taps here. How many of these taps do you have all together throughout the whole network of this?
We've got about 3,000 altogether. This particular woods here, which is about 30 acres, has close to 2,000.
Ralph, can you tell me what this blue line is that you're pulling down through?
Yes, Ken. We have 2 of these 1-inch lines that take the sap from the woods across the field to our tanks, which are parked next to the road. And here's our tank setup.
off, can you describe what this process is you're doing right here and what this machine is?
Okay, this machine is an ordinary milking machine vacuum pump, and it is putting a vacuum on the entire 30 acres of woods. And the sap comes down these blue lines and into a vacuum dumper, which is on top of our tank. And the vacuum dumper has 2 compartments in it, and the bottom one is filling with sap now. I don't know whether it can be seen or not, but if you can see this sap level in this green tube, that shows how full the bottom part of the tank is with sap. When the bottom part of the tank gets full, a float raises up and opens an air valve, which allows that part of the tank to dump into our storage tanks here. And the top, at that time, the top part of the tank starts filling with sap. When the bottom part of the tank is empty, the float comes down and again is re-vacuumized. And the liquid in the top part drops down into the bottom at that time.
It sounds complicated, but I'm sure it's not.
Well, it's a continual operation. It just keeps going on as long as the sap runs. Now, the way we fill the tank on this truck is with engine vacuum. The very same vacuum that works the brakes on the truck is now filling this tank with the sap. We simply open a valve and suck all of the air out of the tank, and when the air is gone, then the sap replaces it. It takes about 20 minutes to half an hour to pump these tanks empty, and the tank on the truck holds between 12 and 1,300 gallons. This is sometimes filled 3 times a day if we're having a heavy run. Now we're moving the truck up the road 2 miles to our sugar house, and it's pulling up next to our underground sap storage. We have room here for approximately 6,000 gallons, all stored underground in 6 separate tanks. Now we also buy sap from the local FFA chapter, and we're able to keep their sap separate from ours because they have a special tank that they always dump in. Now, I raised the hoist a little bit so the sap will drain out of the tank good. Now I'm opening the air valve on the tank to let air in so the sap can come out. There, I'm opening the valve on the back of the tank, and in a minute you'll see the sap flowing. There it comes.
My name is Charlie Kraus. I'm the advisor of the Letchworth chapter of the FFA, and we're out here on our project site where we tap about 400 maple trees to collect the sap, which we sell to Apple Hill Farms in Castile. The club makes around $900 to $1,000 a year profit on this project.
Well, our sap is all brought to tanks by means of plastic tubing. The Letchworth FFA uses buckets. The bucket system is the old time-honored system which many people have used for many, many years. And there are still situations that lead themselves more to buckets than to tubing. And this, I believe, is one of them. They tap trees along roadsides and in the village of Gainesville. And you really can't string tubing around a village. It would kind of get in the way. Everybody enters into the project, all the boys and their advisor too. They use this as a money-making project, and it also teaches them how to work together and shows them an aspect of farming that they might not ordinarily see. There aren't too many sugar bushes around this area. working together, they do a good job collecting the sap. They bring it over to our sugar house, and we buy it from them. It makes a good project for them and is a worthwhile venture for us too. Here they are unloading their tank.
Our sugar house is located as an integral part of our roadside market, where we sell apples, maple syrup, potatoes, and many other products throughout the year. One of the many facets of being in the maple sugaring business is giving tours to high school kids and to grade school kids. They always seem to like to see where maple syrup comes from. This is our new reverse osmosis machine, and it's an energy-saving device that we're using nowadays in the maple industry. And electrically, through the use of motors and high-pressure pumps, we can separate up to 3/4 of the water from the sap. And what we have left that we will put onto our normal evaporators is a high concentrate sugar solution of maple sap. When the concentrated sap leaves the RO, it's pumped up to an upstairs storage tank where it gravity feeds down into the evaporators. It feeds into the evaporators through a float control box that maintains the sap depth in the pans about 1.5 inches to 2 inches deep. There's always a sap flow within the evaporator pans, and as the sap flows farther and farther, it becomes closer to syrup, until at this point, it finally becomes the finished product. Maple syrup is heavier than water, and for that reason, its boiling point is higher than the temperature of boiling water. It is this temperature differential that we use to determine when syrup is actually a finished product. The difference in the temperature of sap and syrup boiling temperature is 7 degrees, and an automatic draw-off is used to determine that point. Syrup is pumped from the filtering tank through a high-pressure filter where all the fine debris is removed. At this point, the syrup glistens. Its color can be checked with a grading kit to determine whether it is table-grade syrup, and then, if it is a table-grade syrup, which color it might be. Sap and syrup is filtered many, many times within our sugar house, and washing filters is no small job. The temperature of the syrup can be determined with a dial thermometer or with the automatic draw-off, which intermittently draws syrup a couple gallons or a gallon at a time. Upwards of 15 gallons of syrup an hour is produced on our evaporators. After the syrup has been filtered, it is stored in barrels, in open tanks, or immediately canned. This is my sister Barbara, who helps with the canning process. We can syrup into gallons, 3/4 gallons, half gallons, quarts, and several different small-sized containers. Dorothy, my wife, removes the foam which is formed from the heating process. Inner seals and caps are attached to the can. The containers are then washed and laid on their side to cool. Later they will be labeled and stored away for future use. Most of the syrup that we make at Apple Hill is sold right through our front door. Two other products which we make are maple cream and maple sugar. They are formed by simply boiling syrup to a higher degree of temperature, and through several different stirring processes, the finished products are made. Late in the season, when we begin to make commercial grade or dark syrup, we sell it to processors who blend it or use it to their best advantage. Our store is the place that we sell most of our syrup. And happy customers always have a knack of coming back.
Is the sausage good?
Maple syrup is always enjoyable on pancakes or waffles or ice cream. And this is the final reward to a hard day's work in the woods. Well, did you save any for me, boys?
Better hurry up.
Oh boy, this looks good.
It is.
After a hard day's work, it looks just right.